what we'll do first. Okay, so maybe what we will do first is to introduce the board, our board of Larkspur neighborhood. I'll go first. I'm Sue Sullivan and I chair the Neighborhood Association Board. We have Catherine Rolla, who is not here tonight, or she's coming late at any rate. And we also have Kelsey, who is traveling, and so she's not here tonight. We also have Diane, so say who you are and what you do.
I'm the transportation chair, and I've been communicating with Janet and with Robin regarding transportation issues, specifically regarding Pettigrew, but I kind of keep my eye on all the issues regarding transportation in our neighborhood and hope to improve the walkability and bikeability and general transportation safety of the neighborhood.
And Marty? I think Marty's on, isn't she?
Oh, Marty's on mute.
Okay. I'm Marty and I take care of memberships. Send out the reminders for our meetings and all things MailChimp.
All things MailChimp. Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Wills, and I am the communications chair, trying to figure out social media and emails and stuff like that.
And Molly. Caught you off guard.
Oh yes, of course. The dogs don't start barking right until like we have our meeting start. So I'm the vice chair. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this meeting tonight because I happen to live on Pettigrew. If I stand up here and look out the window, I see the road. So kind of excited to hear the different ideas to improve the safety. So sorry about my dogs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and so normally our normal procedure is that we open the meeting with a chance for public comments. If there is anybody who has an issue that they want us to hear about, or public comment about something going on in the neighborhood that they want to bring up, we will give you a couple of minutes to talk about it. So if you could raise your hand, that would be helpful. And Molly will look because I can only see 9 people. Oh, I missed Morgan. Oh,
Totally okay. Not a big deal. I'm here. I'm just making some dinner, so I'm not going to be on video, but I'll join you all on video in a second. I'm listening.
So Morgan is our Neighborhood Leadership Alliance representative. So very good. Okay, so anyone with a comment that they would like, or a question for the board, or anything? Anne.
Hi there. I have a question regarding, I know that the Wilson and 15th Circle is going to be next on the agenda, and that the city has taken the house on the corner, I guess through eminent domain. And I just wondered if anyone is familiar with what that process is. Like, is the house just completely destroyed, along with, like, there's a really nice shed in the backyard. My daughter lives right there in that track. Like what happens to all of the peripheral stuff that's there when there's a takeover like that? Does anyone know?
I don't know. And I do think that we can get you the contact information for the project person.
That would be awesome.
Which would be, I think, the way to approach it, because
Okay.
The person who is of the city who's involved in, like project management, will know what the story is. So,
and how might you get that to me?
So if you can put your email in the chat, then one of us will get back to you on that. How would that be?
Perfect.
I can write it down and get back to her.
That's
Okay.
Sinclair Burr. I can put his email in the chat.
Oh, okay. It's Sinclair Burr. That's right. He came and talked about something else here.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So look in the chat and you'll get that information to.
Okay.
to the
Thanks.
contact. Okay, anyone else? Going once? Going twice? And with that, I
Hey,
think-
wait,
Oh,
Sue, hold on.
yeah.
It's
Kristen raised her
Kristen.
hand.
Should we put this, I got an email and I'm wondering if I should put that under public comments, or I just got it this morning.
okay,
It's just someone concerned with campers in the area off the Coiner Trail connector to the church parking lot on 9th. Lots of trash has been abandoned, tent poles, tarps, food waste. How do we get this cleaned up? Will the city remove the debris? Question mark. I don't know, would we want to mark that down as a public comment? They're not here, so, but it's kind of a,
yeah, I think it's good to have it in the notes that there was a public comment about it. Maybe if you could forward that email to me, we can, I'm thinking that's city property, if I'm right. And so.
I don't know if it's city or Ben Parks, yeah, because of the
It's-
Coiner
it's-
Trail, right, going behind Bear Creek
It's city
up
property.
to, well, Morgan, you would know.
Yeah, it's definitely city property.
Okay,
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 Okay.
just to make note and I'll forward it.
okay, great. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Janet. And if Robin comes on, we can include her in the discussion. So take it away.
All right, it looks like she did join us. And
Oh, good, wonderful.
so she'll chime in as she has items to add. And then I can talk a little bit. I also have some maps. I don't know if it's easy if I'm able to share my screen. Or if you
Molly can help with that. So Molly can give you permission.
And I can.
There, I just let you be host. So does that
Oh,
allow
here we
you?
go. It
Yeah.
does. It just popped up
Awesome.
there. All right, and it jumbles everything all around, of course. Can you see my screen with my notes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I kind of kept it informal. Basically, first, I wanted to say thank you to the neighborhood associations, all of them who are here, because you're all fairly active. And I don't know about other people in the city, but I know Robin and I in our department, traffic operations, we rely on you to help get us information on what's happening out there and what people are looking for and how we can make things safer. So thank you. I know you're all volunteers, so thank you very much for getting involved and trying to work out some safety improvements with us. So I think it started with Sinclair gave a presentation that kind of spurred some discussion on a few things, including Pettigrew. And the kind of crux of it, which I have a couple questions that we were asked. We'll go through a quick background and then talk about some ideas and try and get some feedback from you today. But one of the questions, kind of the main question, was what improvements can be done to improve bike safety, bike and pedestrian access, safety, and keep speeds low on Pettigrew. And that's what we're going to talk more about today. Some specific questions I got were, can the city stripe a double yellow? Because part of the street is actually a dashed yellow line, and we can absolutely do that. We've been trying to catch them. I don't know how we missed Pettigrew last year. We did a bunch of them. So we will add that to our striping program when they start in June. So that'll be done this summer. And then a question of, can we install permanent speed radar or some type of flashing speed signs like the stop sign? And possibly, and we'll talk more about that, the permanent speed radar, it might be a tool for Pettigrew. We're not installing other flashing signs like that stop sign. That was a very specific tool for a very specific issue where the stop sign was out of the field of vision on a wider approach. But we might be able to do something with the speed radars. Those are about 5,000 each. So I would have to find $10,000 to do that. And then there was also a question about someone interested in a crosswalk being installed on American Lane. People use that for crossing and for schools. And that actually where Broster House kind of does its jog into American Lane, the north side of that intersection is slated to get a pedestrian island and a marked crossing with this summer's NSSP, was that Neighborhood Street Safety Project.
Yes.
So that is good news. So wanted to run through a little bit of background that you are probably all mostly aware of, but just kind of wanted to set the stage a little bit for Pettigrew. That, as you know, Bend was kind of a more two-lane rural road town with larger lots, and it's been becoming urbanized at an accelerating pace with small lots and then bike lanes and sidewalks. And yeah, in some spots it's happening as part of large development, but Pettigrew has the scenario where it's more smaller developments happening. So it's happening in chunks along the corridor. So you have and it's not always the ones fronting Pettigrew. So we're faced with more rural section than urbanized section. The city completed a GO bond project from like 2012 to 2022 with $20 million of projects over a 10-year period. And that included like Murphy, 14th Street, Reed Market, urbanizing those streets. We just, as you are all actively involved in, worked on the TSP, and the community approved a GO bond that's now about 200 million in 10 years. So pretty accelerated project schedule to urbanize a whole nother list of streets. And that does include sidewalk improvements and bike lanes along Bear Creek, 27th Street, and the Wilson corridor, kind of in the vicinity here. But alas, as you all know, Pettigrew was not included in any of those prioritized improvement plans. And you're not alone. Archie Briggs is another rural street. Both of them are kind of in between. Pettigrew, you could argue, actually is more of a connector to between businesses and schools. But we're faced with, all right, neither street is on a plan for a while. So are there some low cost creative things we can do to try and help people walking and biking and then drive the speed limit? So a 2019 count showed there's about 10 to, or I guess if you add both directions, 12 to 27 people biking, about one bike an hour along the corridor with 6,000 vehicles a day. That's kind of the mid-level for a collector street, mid to low end. Collectors can go up to 14 or 20,000 on busy 3-lane collectors, whereas a busy local street's like 2,000 vehicles. Low volume local street, 400 vehicles. And the other thing that it showed was there's consistent traffic. Some streets have a peak of traffic in the morning, then it goes down, a peak of traffic at lunch, and then it goes down, and then a peak in the evening. Pettigrew kind of ramped up and then held fairly consistent throughout the day. So bear with me a little bit more before I ask you some questions. The future projects that are coming up are a septic to sewer project, which is just the southern, like 600 some odd feet, just north of Reed Market. And we did look at the opportunity to try and widen the shoulder or add a sidewalk with that project. But because of the grades, that was going to cost around $500,000. So that is not going to happen with the septic to sewer project. As I mentioned, Pettigrew reconstruction is happening as development happens. There's no TSP or bond project. We already talked about, Bear Creek in 27 right now is scheduled to start design in 2023 and construction in 2025. And that, I believe that is going to include the Pettigrew Bear Creek roundabout. And then the low stress routes, which if I'll zoom back over here, kind of the green lines on the map, and I can zoom in there in a little bit more in a second, are not a funded project in this vicinity. So those are the kind of things we want to talk about today. What kind of was mapped out? Are there maybe some better routes in the interim? What are you seeing? Where would you like to cross? And how can we help people bike and walk? So before I launch into discussion of kind of those low stress routes and maybe some options for this area, is there any other item related to that you'd like me to talk about, or any other ped bike item that comes to mind?
I will just say one comment about it's the 2019 traffic count. And of course, now we've got 133 units of medium density residential going in just off of Pettigrew, between Pettigrew and Daly Estates. We're going to have 176 units going in at the intersection of Bear Creek and Pettigrew. So we're looking at something on the order of 300 units that are currently planned. Plus, we know I'm no longer the land use chair, so I'm not up on all of the latest, but I know that there's other stuff in discussion along there. So we're looking at a place that's going to get a fair amount of development, but not in the chunk near Fields, which is the chunk that's the problem.
Yep.
And I just wanted to make sure that that's clear to everybody, that you know, we recognize that some of those developed areas are going to get sidewalks and they're going to get widened and all the rest of that. But that chunk near Fields Farm is trouble. So I guess that's maybe not news to anybody, but I just want to make sure I brought it up.
Thank you. That's part of the discussion, because there are some areas that don't have the full right of way. So it's not only are there grade issues and who's going to build it, but there's not even the right of way dedicated for the space if we somehow could come up with a project. I'm going to put that on my list down here. Okay. So then if I zoom over here, let me see this view. Zoom in a little bit. So this is just a screenshot of the green, which are the key routes. So as you can see, again, the initial TSP plan, which as we're implementing this, they may change a little bit, showed a key route along Fargo. And then I think this is, oh, I keep forgetting the name of the street, starts with a C. It's in my notes, but so
it's Claraway.
Yeah,
Claraway.
Claraway.
Thank you. I can never remember Claraway. So it's Claraway as just a choice to kind of space it between, this is that Fields Copperfield connection here, and Claraway are the two spots that would target a crossing and have this low stress network. And then it would connect to the one that's going to be built along 27th Street. And so the issue, right, though, is that this is not an easy connection. If you're going Fargo, there's no, like, Daly Estates doesn't go all the way through over here, and neither does Fargo. So it's hard to provide if people can't bike and walk along Pettigrew, how else can we get them north-south? And then what's the best east-west route? So
well, there's one other thing, is that the connection north of Fields Farm that you have there is actually on the Fields driveway. That's not even a road.
correct. So it needs something dedicated to happen, or a future road. So yeah, so this is a long way out, quite
Okay.
likely. We never know, right? Could happen tomorrow, but there's no current plans for that to change. So
It's
Rob
too
and
bad
I,
that Jim's not here. He was here one of the last times we were talking about this, and I think he did say he doesn't mind people cutting through and such. So like, even, you know, that property remains, like he'd be willing to, you know, want to try to work with something that, or have a crosswalk there. So I think that still could,
okay.
yeah.
That's good to know. And that's part of the issue, right? Is if he's willing to get an easement, we can maybe figure out how to build something. But the other piece is to try and build, ideally, a crosswalk of Pettigrew would be in a spot that it's wide enough that we could have at least a 2 foot, but ideally a 4 or 6 foot median, right? To put this crossing sign in the middle, to also give that visual context. And the road's not wide, it's barely 24 feet there.
Right.
So that's like problem 2 with this issue. So we're kind of looking at, is there something we can do with low cost, with signing and striping and mapping and getting the word out to people, of maybe using Daly Estes and Fargo or even Shadowwood on a route instead of Pettigrew, and just getting the word out and trying to do things to those streets to make them better. And, you know, a piece of that is Wilson's coming in, right, too. So we're gonna have Wilson, and the roundabout's gonna go in at 15th. The development's gonna happen over here. And so you'll have a pretty good connection all the way to the old mill. So if we can figure out how to get people across Pettigrew. So one thing we looked at, and I might be jumping around a little bit here in my notes. One thing we looked at was maybe Thomas. There actually is a little wider section at Thomas. And it seemed like there, when I've been driving back and forth since we started talking about this, there's a handful of people that seem to get to the Larkspur Trail, and I see them crossing here more than other places. And I don't know if that's random or if that's your all experience too. But it's wide enough that we could add something. We would have to sacrifice that half block of bike lane, which is a slight downside, but only slight because it ends there and it has only gone for like a block and a half anyways. So I would say the integrity of that bike lane, the benefit of putting something in the middle of the road to change the context is probably a greater benefit at this point. So that might be something we can do, is work on a crossing at Thomas. And then maybe this one shifts down to Bayou, that also can get to the park. And there isn't necessarily a wide spot at Pettigrew. We could mark it and it'd be a higher stress crossing. But then at Bayou, or where it ends up crossing 27th Street, there is a shadow of a left turn lane. So you might be able to put a crossing on 27th Street. So now we're patching together sort of a way to get across 27 and a way to get through the neighborhood. So let me zoom back to my notes over here. I think I jumped to showing you the low stress network. At one point, we were like, what other crazy idea? Like, what is any idea out there? And one idea that got floated, well, what if we closed one lane of Pettigrew and had it, which I would have to figure out which direction works better, and then use the other 12-foot lane as a pedestrian and bike lane. And while that certainly like feasibly is possible, it wouldn't be a huge cost. You could use it, do with some temporary barricades. The downside again is the development pattern and how the road network is in this area. You can't like in the gridded section here, you could say, oh, people can use Fargo, but for the rest of these blocks, it's really hard to just have one direction and you'd be sending them out of direction. And so I think when you start to look at that volume, the chunk just going to the neighborhood, let alone the sort of, cut through people getting through, they would start shifting to 15th Street, which also is a residential street, or partially even through to Fargo and Daily Estes. And now, have you really improved things? I don't know. Our inclination was based on the volumes that are on Pettigrew now and another 2,000 plus vehicles when you have those two developments coming in. It's probably not feasible. So we kind of eliminated that one from further discussion. So any comments on that information so far?
I will say that the idea of the crosswalk with some kind of median in the middle also would help with slowing traffic down a little bit, which we had some people who had made suggestions, I think either last time or in, I don't know, maybe it was in chat or something, putting in some kind of one of those little mini roundabouts, which I know would not necessarily fly on a street like this, being a collector. But that would, I think, would help to serve the purpose of slowing traffic down, which is one of the big concerns. It's not just pedestrian safety, it's also speed.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think it makes some sense to eliminate the possibility of making Pettigrew one way. I think that might sound appealing, but I think we get a lot of pushback from the neighborhood. And again, like you say, there would be no other streets that would easily absorb traffic going in the other direction. So I can understand why that would be eliminated. Seems like there are no good options.
No, right. But it's chipping together a couple little things, to get connections. And I think a lot of people don't think, we have some people that work at the city that live there, and people just think, well, I walk down Pettigrew and it's terrible, or ride my bike down Pettigrew, and we'll be talking to them and you're like, well, have you taken Fargo? And they're like, no, people don't necessarily intuitively think. They think I drive on Pettigrew, that's the direct route, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I think getting information out of like, and it would, we'd kind of go through our neighborhood street safety where it would be, we'll double check the speed and volumes. My inclination is they're within the thresholds. So you would post them 20 miles an hour, you would add sharrows to the street. And so it'd, be on the map connecting things. We also would look at, and this is going to be a little tricky how it happens too, because of the widths, to see if we could do something before Bear Creek, but then two other small improvements that we discovered that could help connect things are the crossing at Dean Swift, right? And people have asked about that, I think, from your neighborhood association before. So that when you get up over here, you can cross Bear Creek. That might be in a little later phase, but that would be our aim. And then what I also discovered is there's not full right away, but I think there's enough to do it. And there's he installed a fence now, or the owner installed a fence now, but I think there's space to do it. And it's relatively flat grade. We could build a sidewalk between Thomas and Air Park. You can kind of see my cursor over here. And that would allow sort of, if you took Fargo or Daily Estes and Thomas is the crossing, that would actually connect the sort of northwest portion with the south portion of the neighborhood and trails, and allow people to go from Fargo or Shadowwood, however they get there, over to Thomas, up that piece of sidewalk on the west side, and then you could go through the neighborhood. So it's a little bit circuitous, but until we get that field section that Sue was talking about developed, at least we now have given you a way to get over there. So.
There are a few questions in the chat.
Oh.
So maybe
All
and if you want to bring that up, maybe you just bring it up and answer them directly.
Yeah, let me see if I can get to that. My screen. Oh, might have to have you read them here somehow when I shared my screen. Or I guess I can stop sharing my screen.
Well,
Well,
I can
Read them.
Why can't Pettigrew
read them
be
out.
downgraded to a neighborhood street from a collector status?
Oh, good question. So our collector and arterial streets are established through the transportation system plan, and it's a statewide plan that gets adopted, and it's based on kind of the area they serve, not necessarily do they have ped bike connections. And so it meets all the criteria of a collector feeding people from the neighborhoods to get to Bear Creek and Reed Market. And so changing the status actually wouldn't change much about the street.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
And I'll have even the folks on Archie Briggs actually asked the same question, and we went through some of the same discussions.
It's helpful. Archie Briggs at least has some curves, and curves should naturally, want to slow people down. This is a 1 mile straight. Like, this is the street that, like, hey, you want to go race? I know where we can go race. Like, there's barely any street lights. So there is another question here. Is there a plan to complete the bike lanes on Bear Creek from the elementary school to Pettigrew?
Bear Creek.
I just answered that in the chat.
Robin might be able to chime in on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's Bear Creek is part of a key route, and that has funding. It's scheduled for design and construction coming up. We don't know what the facility will be. We just know it will accommodate walking and biking and be more comfortable. Plain, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I kind of want to go back to the one-way deal and thinking that we're going to hear pushback. I guess I'm really curious on that, especially living on Pettigrew and not having any options. But I live right in the middle. So it's like, could it go north? Could it go south? I don't know. Just tell me which way to go and I'll go that way, because perhaps I'll actually bike, or walk a lot more if I know it's safer, because often I'm not, I'm going a walkable or bikeable distance to at least to the grocery store, but it would be worth asking, and like, maybe it could split, like, does the north half go north and the south half go south? I think because we don't have a lot of room to work with, really thinking outside the box on this one is the only way that we're going to be able to do
Right.
it. And it's going to take some kind of sacrifice. And if that means that, I don't get to drive, both, left and right out of my driveway, I'll work with that. I think most people that live and walk and bike this street would feel the same way too. Like there's got to be something that we should be able to, kind of work out. So I know there's not a lot to work with, that it's gonna cost a lot. So that long range view, I'm willing to sacrifice something to get something for sure on that.
Right. And I think a little bit of that is if the ends were in great condition and it was just the middle, that might tip things maybe a little more towards that. But like, let's say we do that, then you still don't have a great intersection across Bear Creek or to connect to on Bear Creek, right? So it's like a little ahead of its game right now too, in that you're impacting 3,000 cars, in one direction every day for a handful, 100 or less of people walking and biking. Those people driving are now there's a lot of them it's really a lot more complicated to get to their house. If you think of all the people living like north and sort of the like south of Bear Creek and east of Pettigrew, it's really awkward.
Yeah. And I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
It's not at all. But, I wonder, just a thought, are some people taking the easier route to drive less through their neighborhood so they can drive faster on Pettigrew, where, they could drive through their neighborhood if they just drove the speed limit, it might, that if, I don't, if that's kind of something that I think maybe some folks might do, that, especially down kind of where off of like the southwest corner of Pettigrew, where all those gridded streets are, like Thomas and South, how those guys
Right.
are all kind of blocked out. I wonder how much of that traffic actually could go out a non-Pettigrew route where it would really, interrupt that flow of traffic. It seems like besides Pettigrew Court, and if your driveway is on Pettigrew, you have another way to get to your house if Pettigrew was closed.
Yeah, and I did like a quick little survey, and it was a lot more people that didn't have multiple choices than we initially thought. Right. So, we don't need to take too much more time today. I think that's an idea. Like it doesn't, maybe as Bear Creek happens, it's something that could happen at any point. We don't have to like decide now because we're building something different. So
Sure.
you guys can keep talking about it more. It's probably something that would take some push from neighborhood groups more so than the city saying we're going to do this. So that's something that can be in a conversation. Marty, did you have something?
I was just going to ask, is it possible to do like a scenario detour program, like just to test something out, like to test sending people to Fargo, to test having one way, just, a pretend solution.
Yeah,
See
a
how it
pilot,
goes.
we call those pilot projects, right? We'll do
Oh,
little
yeah.
pilot projects where we'll close the street and collect some data and try and get that. So yes, it could be.
Oh, Kat's here. Yay.
Hi. Hey, I just jumped in for the tail end of that discussion, so I'm not sure what I missed. I'll check it out later in the recording, but I wanted just to add one quick sidebar on the Pettigrew situation. I spoke with a professor at the University of Oregon this weekend or last Friday, and he works specifically in transportation policy for city planning. And he has a number of really great references for actual changes that were made to streets and what great visuals for how those changes were made with sustainability and bicycling in mind. I'm going to drop the link for those resources in the chat. I think that's something that we as a board can continue talking about and maybe find some things, some actual examples that we might see maybe being a good trial for that street, and bringing those back to you. It looks like these links, you have to download a copy and fill out a PDF. So it's something that we would have to do down the line. But I definitely think it's a good resource for practical options that are already in place in other cities.
So
Okay.
Jen, do you see a possibility of doing like a test program for directing traffic through Fargo, or maybe trying out the potential of a one-way Pettigrew and just seeing the reaction?
So we could talk about it for sure. I'd have to take that up the chain. We would not redirect traffic to Fargo per se, right? We'd have to pick a direction, and because it is a collector versus a local. So Fargo and Daly Estes are local streets. So the detour would be up at Bear Creek or down at Reed Market, and it would be, you need to take 15th or 27th Street instead. So we'd make that shift, and we just have to be timely when whatever this is happening, right? Because right now there's construction on Wilson, so doing something now while stuff's already detoured to 15th might not be in the best interest of a successful project.
Okay. But you had mentioned funneling traffic through Fargo, but that's not an option because that's just a local street?
Yeah, no, I guess when I did say that, and I was referring more to the people who live in that gridded area then would end up using Fargo. So where
Not as a
maybe
form
more
of-
people are using Pettigrew now, that one direction will flip to Fargo, just like that for the the other side, that direction will flip to Daly Estes. So the people, it's like a net sum gain, right? People on Pettigrew are happy because there's less traffic and it seems better, but now you've got more traffic on the local streets. I think, again, because it doesn't connect all the way through, the hypothesis would be that you're not seeing a lot of through traffic that would go to 27th or 15th because it's not easy to get through the subdivision. And then you're on kind of meandering roads with on-street traffic. But it'd be interesting to get the feedback from the people who live more in that north half of the street that really don't have a great alternate.
And what about the possibility of the speed limit signs, the permanent sign, or the potential of a flashing sign? You said that was just a very unique solution to a specific problem.
The flashing was, but we're looking at it might not be a secret that we have some speeding issues on a lot of streets in the city of Bend. And so we're trying to figure out what is a policy or a program we can implement with where we use our speed radar signs. We can't afford putting them everywhere. They're not necessarily effective if you put them on every street. But that has been a tool we've used on Portland, right? As that's waiting to be reconstructed. We've used that on parts of Louis Riley, on Archie Briggs. And so I think I have enough sort of basis, and there's, again, not a lot of these other residential collectors that really have no plan for additional improvements. So I think, especially if we're going to put a crosswalk in one or two locations, we pair that with the speed signs, north of Reed Market and south of Bear Creek. So we've got kind of a system that we're doing to try and change the context a little bit.
I like that.
And again, it's like that sort of circle that you go in of, there's not really pedestrian and bike facilities. There's not really even a reasonable space to use for ped bikes. So it'd be hard to get a speed limit down to 25. It also has access control, so it doesn't meet those criteria. Possibly 30 if we do some crossing improvements, but it's probably marked at the right speed limit for what the street is by today's system of how we do speed limits.
Thanks.
Okay.
Tamara, you've got your hand raised there. Oh, you're
Yeah,
on mute.
thanks.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, thanks. I guess I have two comments. One comment is I own a house on Bear Creek, and I was the president of this neighborhood association almost 20 years ago, and we tried forever to get bike lanes on Bear Creek that are still not done. So I did ask that question because I think it's relevant to this discussion. And also, I just want everybody to know how hard it is to get something like that done here, and especially because our system seems to be such that we rely on developers to piecemeal things together. And so one question I have is the city looking at stopping that model and trying to just charge developers so that we can actually build things to completion instead of having like sidewalks to nowhere, bike lanes to nowhere, et cetera. That's number one. Number two is, you know, it strikes me that with Pettigrew, if I'm driving down Pettigrew, it's usually because I'm trying to go to Costco and I don't want to go down 27th because all the lights. And so I guess I'm just wondering, if we step back and look at the greater picture, like why do people choose Pettigrew over 27th when 27th is gridded out to be that type of a street? What have we done infrastructure wise to make 27th unattractive to people that makes Pettigrew attractive to people? And are there changes that we could make to that street, which is a major arterial, to help sort of sway people to not use Pettigrew? So those are my comments. Thank you.
Good questions. To your first one, we are limited by what you can assign to a developer, right? They can only do their frontage and their rational nexus. So you can't have them build extended sections to connect missing links. You know, kind of it's beyond their proportionate share. And so can the city start doing projects? Well, as you've seen, right, we can, but it takes funding from somewhere. And so I think you look at Bend and how fast it's grown and what it started out with. And that's what I kind of talked about at the beginning a little bit. Like there's 2 series of bonds, $20 million bond from 2012 to 2022, upgraded a number of roads that we forget about. You drive down Murphy now and are like, oh yeah, there's sidewalks and bike lanes. 5 years ago, that was not the case. That was a rural road with no shoulders and no sidewalks or partial sidewalks. And then we now have a $200 million bond, right? So we're still finding Pettigrew and streets and places with gaps. And the city just did a landmark $200 million bond for projects, and it's still not enough, right?
I guess maybe I didn't ask the question right. So the question was, because it comes up every so often, maybe every 5 years, like, what if we just take the money from the developers instead of asking them to build adjunct, like that infrastructure adjunctive to their project? What if we take the money from developers and then we decide where we start working on the transportation projects? That's my question.
Okay. Yeah. And that's probably not the best answer for that, but a little bit of that is that same nexus of like the money has to go to their frontage and there's some legal requirements to their frontage. But then you also, and we've done that a little bit with some sidewalk money, but then you get into the like, okay, now how do you go back? Because now something's happened and you need that improvement in that sidewalk and that. So that's a game that you don't really win when you play that juggling around. So I think what you're seeing now is the city is trying to make a bigger effort on figuring out, as we're getting grant money, as we're doing these things, we're starting a pedestrian network plan project where we're trying to prioritize sidewalk sections so that if we do have some optional funds, we're doing a better job, like you say, of building connected things instead of little isolated segments. So we're trying to move more towards that. And then your question is a little harder to answer too on the use of Pettigrew. And I think 27th Street, you have to keep in mind the city of Bend also is trying to keep streets narrow, right? So 27th Street in this plan is not going to become a 5-lane street. It's still going to be a 3-lane street. So it's limited with its capacity and what it can handle. So Pettigrew will, even as 27th gets built and improved and becomes more attractive, Pettigrew still has a role for those intermediate people that are making that connection to go probably to Costco, right? The primary driver. It's easier to just go directly there than to go around and turn and come back, or go to 15th and turn and come back. So I think that's, even if it were a 5-lane and it could serve more, it might be a little more of attractive, but I think it's a relatively captive audience. So I don't know that I'm not aware of any quick solution to try and get less people to use Pettigrew. And from a street perspective, it's kind of doing its job, right? Like it's got 6,000 out of what 14,000 capacity that it could handle. So it's in there helping the system work. It's just an issue of it would work better if it had bike lanes and sidewalks. So, you know, the solution isn't necessarily get less people driving on it. It's trying to figure out how do we get people biking and walking in the corridor until we get funding. So Not telling you anything you don't already know.
Yeah, Anne has a question in the chat. Does the Collector Street status forbid installing the low sloping speed bumps?
It does. And
Okay.
it does. And actually on our local streets, we're only installing speed bumps on green, like the designated greenways, which are the 8 miles of the project. So we're limiting where we're installing speed humps anyways. And someone earlier asked about roundabouts, which I don't think that's off the table for Pettigrew. That's something that you could do on a collector. And that's in fact what the solution I think at Bear Creek is. It's just on the other intersections, there's no space right now with a narrow right of way and narrow pavement. So our best bet for something short term is a little raised median island like we talked about at Thomas.
Sue, you got a question? Sue.
Yeah, so I guess we need to start wrapping this up a little bit, but it really boils down to what can we advocate for? And if I'm hearing you right, like the money that is like maybe loose change around the system is mostly going towards this connected pedestrian network. And so things that might fit into that might be the thing to advocate for. But maybe what we do, we've talked about doing kind of a survey of our neighborhood and especially trying to target the people who live along Pettigrew and in this neighborhood. And so if I can get a copy of your slides, that'd be great. And then we can go through and try to get together a list of what some of those possible options are and get some more feedback from neighbors who live in that area as to like, if we advocate for this, is this going to do kind of a situation? Because we recognize that we can't have the optimal solution, and advocating for the wrong thing may be futile for us to get anything done. And so I guess that's where we're just looking for what is the most realistic thing that we can advocate for that might help the situation. And maybe it is that that crosswalk with a center median space, to help slow things down, and some radar signs, maybe permanent radar signs, or at least speed limit signs that are close to that might get people's attention more.
Yep.
So
Some new solid lines, just some fresh paint, solid lines, that will do a lot because we don't even have that right now. So
right.
you hit that stretch of highway, or it feels like highway, and people kind of open up and you can tell like they go fast, like right here. I can watch it all day long. And it's wild. I saw people pass in the middle of the day. It was like in the 2 o'clock hour. I stood up from my desk and I kind of look out here and I saw somebody pass somebody. And I'm just like, and then not too long after that, you see somebody come along on a bike and you're like, somebody better not get hurt on this road. And that's what I'm so afraid of. And so that's where this all comes from. And I hope that we can, I so appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for everything. And I hope, with this discussion, we can start to get somewhere with this because it means a lot for our neighborhood. So thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for coming, Janet and Robin. We really appreciate your time and your attention to this issue.
Oh, you bet. Robin, was there anything else that I missed that you wanted to add?
I think there's a map in your slides, maybe down a little bit, that we were trying to look at, like where crossings could go, how to get those connections. I know you talked about it. Yeah, the Dean Swift crossing up at Bear Creek, one of those, yeah, or 3 of them. The best one that fits is Thomas, but looking at those and seeing if we could get crossings in there and then tie that with a crossing on 27th Street and get to the park.
Yeah, and thank all of you, right? Because that's what Robin and I are realizing, like our department has a little unique niche that through your prompting, we can try and solve some of these problems. I think I get $50,000 a year to spread out on a variety of different signs and striping projects. So that's not much, but trying to prioritize some of these collector streets that actually people have an interest in walking and biking that we can help, that really aren't funded by other projects. That's something that we can work together on. So
Yeah, and we're working towards kind of the second round of the neighborhood street safety program. There's additional funding in the Go Bond projects. And so that solicitation we're anticipating is in early spring, late winter of 2023. So like at the beginning of the year of 2023. And so if we could start thinking about, you know, these crossing locations or that tiny piece of sidewalk right in the middle, you know, that's another funding source that your neighborhood could solicit other projects, and then you guys could work together to see if you triage and prioritize one of these or something like that, in addition to the small amount of money that Janet has.
That would be great. And we will be surveying our neighborhood members. We're going to be putting out the survey in a couple of ways, and Molly does a wonderful job coming up with them. So we'll take a look at the slides and review our discussion and give them some options, and then we'll certainly report back to you with the feedback that we get
Mhm.
from our group.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, so if we can have Janet stop sharing her screen.
Oh, here we go. I got my thing over here. Stop sharing. All right, did that stop?
No, we still have it up.
Says I closed it. I don't know what else I can do, or if someone else can
Molly, is there something you can do here to?
grab it. Stop. Here we go.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so next up on the agenda is James DeRofi and Jennifer Sawyer, who are going to talk about possible participation in the Alpenglow Park grand opening. And so they inquired, a couple weeks ago, and I had a long conversation with James. And so before we make a decision about it, we just want to understand a little bit better what the commitment is and what it is that we're hoping to accomplish if we participate. So we'll let you guys take it away.
Okay, we're asking for $1 billion. No. So Jim Christo from Southeast Bend is also here. Jen was here. Yeah, she's still there. For those of you that don't know, on 15th Street, right by the new Murphy overpass, is Alpenglow Park. It is due to open on July 1st. It's 37 acres. It's basically the largest park for the entire southeast side of town. Many years in the making. Murphy overpass, many years in the making. And Larkspur is fortunate enough to have a park and right next to their elementary school. We have not had that benefit for, I don't know, between Southeast Bend and Old Farm. I think we're right around 6,000 or 7,000 tax slots at the last count, somewhere around there. So long story short, after a couple of years of COVID, being all locked up, we were trying to figure out how to do a general meeting. Old Farm normally does our general meetings at the Larkspur Center. I believe Southeast Bend has been using some of the, I think, Jewel Elementary. Is that correct, Jim? Okay. We did not know where we were going to do a spring-ish general meeting or what we wanted to accomplish in that. We have been very successful. Old Farm has been doing land use notifications with special meetings, and we are between Southeast Bend and Old Farm. We're getting basically hammered weekly with new land use notifications for another development, another development, another development. So we've been constantly meeting with many people. What we wanted to do was figure out a way to basically tell everybody, let's get outside, Let's meet your neighbors. See those people you haven't seen in a couple years. I looked at your agenda this evening, and it's a very common agenda for most of the neighborhood associations. Your concerns are no different than our concerns. The fact that Reed Market Road is the dividing line between Old Farm and Larkspur, that's it. I use Pettigrew all the time. So that's a very important conversation. Many of the neighborhood associations also suffer from the same problem. Participation by the individuals that actually live in the area. Too often people only get upset after the fact, after somebody can make a difference or even have a say, and we're hoping to change that. So the reason I'm asking now, the reason we are 3 months out, is I had to give Parks and Rec 3 months notice to reserve the space of Alpenglow. When you go through, I don't know if any of you've done it, but you go through the Parks and Rec website, and essentially you look at a park and you get to choose what you want to do. A particular picnic shelter, a particular field. You have to put these applications in. Once it's reserved, you can do that. For a while, we were trying to do it all with our funds, which, just like your funds, end on June 30th and then becomes another fiscal year, because we do consider this communication. So I was trying to get everything reserved as early as possible. The park officially opens on July 1st. So that was complicating this idea that I had. But then after talking with Don Horton and some other people and people at the city, Michaela, as well as a couple counselors, if we need to shuffle the funds around, but get to use some of our money from this fiscal year rather than next fiscal year, we can make this part of our communications budget. Old Farm is going to use it as our general meeting. Southeast Bend, I do not know if they've decided on that yet. The idea is, initially, we did not know Parks was having a big event. We wanted to have a big get out, meet your neighbor, welcome to the Southeast area's newest park. Not just an Old Farm, not just a Southeast Bend, not just a Larkspur, because literally Larkspur is a little over a mile from this new park, and it's massive. If you have not been there, it's got multiple fields. There's going to be a new elementary or a new junior high next to it. It's got an outdoor amphitheater with power covered. It's literally like a little version of a Les Schwab. It's got a rock climbing bouldering area, 2 dog run areas, multiple parking lots. Eventually a new bus line is going to go right down it. It is or will be a big area for people on the southeast quadrant of town to go relax and hang out at. And it's probably going to be one of the best places for outdoor gatherings that aren't sports related. Your neighborhood park has a lot of sports fields, which can be utilized for a public gathering, but they're really not set up for it. Whereas Alpenglow is set up for an outdoor gathering. So the idea is this: invite as many of the nonprofits that we've been tasked to work with, reach out with, in the name of DEI, so that we can increase our roles and our visibility to everybody on the southeast side of town. None of the problems end at our borders. Old Farm and Southeast have been trying to work together last few months, because there are issues that are, trans neighborhood association. And we want to continue working with our neighboring neighborhood associations, not just to have a big party, but also for just long-term goals. So one of the things that we've wanted is, how do we get a farmer's market on the southeast side of town? If we could have an annual gathering on the southeast side of town, that would be great. This particular event, Parks wants to take the lead because it is their new park. But it's not their park, it's our park. It's the people of Bend's park. Don doesn't necessarily need to do a big ribbon cutting ceremony with oversized fake scissors. We'd like to have live music, tables from the neighborhood associations. There's going to be games, possibly you go around. Have you signed up with your neighborhood association? You know, you get a punch card, and then, you know, have you gone to a nonprofit? There's going to be live music in the amphitheater. You know, another punch card. Have you gone and checked out the dog park? Have you checked out the rock climbing wall? There's going to be a massive pedestrian bridge that goes over the railroad tracks that basically connects Murphy or Broster House Road to this park. They're waiting on the railroads to give them permission to install that bridge. But that's all going to be east-west interconnectivity for the entire southeast quadrant of town. All we're here is asking you to be a part of this. And fortunately, since Parks is taking the lead on it, they're going to be picking up the big bill. We want food trucks there. They wanted food trucks there. We wanted music. They wanted music. We were going to use a live radio remote. They said, no, let's get live bands. So a live radio remote, when we checked it out, was around $1,700. We're still going to do that for advertising for 2 weeks beforehand. But if they want live music, and it's going to be multiple bands, it changes every 45 minutes or an hour, and they're going to be local musicians. These aren't going to be big names. They're going to be paying around $500 to $700. So what we'd like is you to advertise it. We're going to advertise it. Southeast Bend's going to advertise it. But at the same time, reach out to all of the nonprofits, whether it's the Latino Community Association, whether it's the Ben's Fathers Group, whether it's Central Oregon Land Watch. Basically, we are looking for any group that is not going to be truly offensive to the majority of people. Everybody's always going to be every group upsets somebody. I can't resolve that. None of us can, but we can get everybody there in a friendly, safe family environment that's going to be 4 or 5 hours long, and have fun. Whether it's you bring a croquet set, we've talked about at our table, which I've also talked with Jim, and we have not finalized any of this yet, is to have it. Yes, Susan?
Okay. So I just have a couple of questions. So
yes. Interrupt me for any of this pitch. So
okay, good, because you're throwing out a lot of ideas. A lot of them are great ideas. What we're really looking for is, okay, it sounds like a good idea, but what is it that you really are asking of the neighborhood? I guess is really what it's down to. Are you asking for, help on, it sounds like Parks and Rec is really setting it up. Are we just talking about a table? Are we talking about any kind of other stuff that you are asking for from us? Are you talking about money? I'm just trying to understand what you're asking.
Long story short is not asking for a specific amount of money, asking for you to do a massive marketing to your neighborhood association to tell people about it. It's going to be essentially a free event. I mean, people have to buy their own food. So definitely marketing for a month. We would like to have a neighborhood association table that we can have volunteers running it. So somebody comes in, they get, in order to get a punch, their card punched, what neighborhood association do you belong to? Sign up. But if there's Larkspur's there, we're there, Southeast Bend's there, and we have something weird in the background going on, then people sign up. So it's going to be a way to get people to figure out who's going on where and what ideas belong. Yes.
So the punch card idea, is that coming from Parks and Rec, or is that your idea? Or
it actually came from, so one of our board members, Jen, I just had a brain fart, Brian Kennedy, he had that same idea that Parks had. Literally almost all of the ideas that Parks had, we had sort of hashed out before this. The beauty of Parks being involved is we don't have to do cleanup. We don't have to pay rentals.
Okay, but the punch cards is their deal, and then we would just be one of the stops on the punch card route. Is that right?
It was a way to get people to interact. Literally, yeah. Brian from our neighborhood association came up with it, and so did Parks. It just so happened that almost every one of the ideas we had already talked about in planning, we hadn't instituted yet because we had not secured the space. When we went to secure the location, Parks did not even have it up on their website yet because the park doesn't open until July 1st. So.
Okay, so what are we
Yes.
talking about? And so you're talking about us having a table there essentially.
At this point, I'm believing a shared neighborhood association table would work the best. And
Okay.
so Jim and I had talked about it privately. He might be out of town. And since we are all volunteers, and if we're trying to cover 4 or 5 hours, we can split up that table time. And we would also, and this is not set in stone, we're thinking about getting some sort of distraction for each volunteers group. So we threw out an idea of getting a dunking booth, a neighborhood association dunking booth. Don't know who we're putting in it. Or we could have like a contest for kids, like the cornhole things. We have no idea yet. So that when people stop by the neighborhood association table, the parents stop, check out what the neighborhood associations are doing, and then the kids go get distracted for 10 minutes. And this is sort of what we're pushing for the groups that want to show up, because the more activities that people can do, the more likely people will stay for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours as they wander around and see the whole park.
Okay.
Yes.
So, so what we need to decide is, whether or not we have, because normally we take off July. So that's normally not a month that we would have a meeting. And I know I am out of town for part of that month. And, I haven't looked at the dates yet to see whether it's that part or a different part. Anyway, before we can make a commitment, we need to talk among our board to find out whether or not we have the capability of supporting that, in terms of, so it sounds like we might have some of that coming in the chat. But so I think it sounds like a great idea. I think I can't speak for the board because we have to vote on it, but I think I appreciate you bringing that forward and giving us a little better feel for exactly what it is that we're talking about in terms of commitment. It sounds like it's not money, it's mostly manning the station and maybe helping to facilitate some kind of an idea for an activity that will be associated with that.
Yes, it is not, I don't think it's going to be very expensive this year. We would like to continue to do this every year, and we'd like it to become like an annual Southeast event.
Okay, well,
but that's
for this year, we'll
term.
see how
That's
it goes,
long-term.
and then we can make that decision
Yes.
afterwards. How's that sound?
Yes, yes. Does any of the Larkspur board have any questions? Since we've got Jen and Jim, we've all had this conversation, so just ask anything or whatever's popping in your mind.
What was the date?
July 8th.
Awesome, thanks.
That's Friday. And the tentative time was that, did she say 4 to 8?
It's in the evening. It's going to be
Yeah.
4 to 8ish, and that's tentative. And it is the week after July 4th. We're assuming there will be more people in town at that weekend than the earlier weekend. So Parks and Rec doesn't take legal responsibility of the park till the 1st. Before that, it's literally the developer's property. So they're required for safety and management and all of that. That's where the scheduling came in. But we can use our funds from this fiscal year to pay for the advertising. We're going to do a postcard. We're going to do our A-frames that we put up on our street signs. We're going to also buy some advertising on Facebook and some radio stations. So that's what we're going to contribute as far as our money goes. And if need be, there's even talk of possibly having a second stage. We are working with Julie Brown and Becky Rexford at Parks and Rec. Nothing, like I said, nothing is set in stone at this point. This is the first, I reached out to Sue, but this is me reaching out to the rest of your board. And yes, and we just want, it's been so long since Southeast has had anything compared to other sections of town. We just figure it's time.
And then in terms of actual publicity by Parks and Rec, do they have a plan of when they were going to put that out?
So they are basically going to do a postcard and their standard Parks and Rec sort of advertising, which is a notification for all the neighborhood associations to put out. We want to go way beyond that.
Okay, and do you have any time frame on that?
Well, realistically, it takes a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks to get things printed up, designed, and everything before the event. So if we're talking July 8th, April, we should sort of by the end of May know what we're wanting to do and start that. I've already been privately reaching out to some of the nonprofits in town, seeing if they're interested or not. Everybody's very excited about it, but we need to, get them all signed in. Basically, do the official reach out, send in, requests to the various nonprofits in town. And I'm encouraging, or what I'd like to see is, if everybody does, host something, whether it's a bouncy house or, some weird game. And then the tables, we haven't even figured out the design of the park yet. The Parks and Rec didn't even know where all the power accessibility was. So if a certain group needed power, we have to get the map and look at that. But since the park's not finished yet, we can say, hey, we need an outdoor power line over here.
Okay, so, but we're not talking about.
That's not our funds. That's not our
Okay,
funds.
okay.
We just get a, we're coming in at the last 5% of design process saying, for the long term of this park, it would be cool if this was over there.
Okay,
So if you're bored, go walk and check out the new park and say, wow, it would be neat if over here there was a this.
okay, so anything else associated with this? Any other questions from the board about this?
Jim, do you have anything to add since you're Southeast Bend?
No, Jim, I think you've kind of said it all, and I'm trying to arrange my schedule, so I'll be getting back in town that day. So hopefully I'll be able to make it. So, but I think you covered it all. Thanks.
Okay, so
That's
there.
it, Sue. I mean, if any of you have any specific questions, reach out to myself, reach out to Jen, reach out to Jim. Yes.
Okay,
And if you
what,
need,
do you have a
need me-
particular time you need an answer from us? I'm just,
I don't know. I mean, I would say hypothetically within 2 weeks, because if I can go back to Parks and say Larkspur also wants to do this or be a part of this, then their staffers that are putting this together are then going to go to Don Horton and go, hey, the entire southeast side of town is wanting to do this. Who knows? Maybe they'll allocate more money.
okay,
Because that's what it all comes down to. It's funds, but Parks has already said we're going to be an active part of the planning of this. So as soon as you decide yes, then you'll be involved in those meetings and some of those decisions.
It'd be a great opportunity to kind of get the name of the neighborhood associations out there and connect with the community, the Southeast community, kind of show them what we're doing up in here.
I will say that when Parks and Rec was doing the concerts, in the various parks around, we set up a table at one of them, and there was relatively low traffic at it, but we did have, like we were handing out stuff that was, trying to encourage people to come over to our table. We had some stuff going on. And in the process of that, I discovered that most of the people that were actually at it were not Larkspur neighbors, even though it was in a Larkspur park. And so I think you will find the same thing, is that it won't all be old farm people. So, that it's likely that there will be a fair number of Larkspur people or other neighborhood people there. So.
And actually, that would be great, because if we can even get names of people from other neighborhood associations and then just give that to those neighborhood associations, then I think we're doing one of the things we're tasked to do, and that's city communications, but not top down. This is going to be, I'm more of a bottom up neighborhood association guy, and like to tell the city what we think is more important rather than have them tell us what they think is the most important. But that's just me. I know Jen and Jim both have their own ideas on that statement.
I second that notion.
Okay, anything else that we need to know about this before we move on to something else?
Nothing for me. I'll sign off. Please reach out. Sue has my contact information. And on Pettigrew, I just have to say this. I think what you should shoot for is one major traffic calming device. And I think that would make the massive difference of whether or not someone in a car goes, should I jump over to 27th Street or should I cruise down Pettigrew? And Sue, I think you should, I don't know what it would take, but you're right. Those, not a roundabout, those little mini speed roundabout things that people put in their neighborhoods. If we could figure out how to get one of those, you would literally watch the traffic drop down to just people that live on Pettigrew, rather than using it as a, I don't want to go down 27th Street because there's too much traffic there. That's just a thought. So, because I know I've worked with Robin for at least the last 10 years trying to come up with all the various safe routes. And it's amazing what just one annoying thing to a car does in the driver's behavior.
Yeah, we have experience with that on Fifth. You know, they put in that mini roundabout there and that really helped a lot.
Yeah. Or all the area by off of Wilson, that park, how they did the greenway that goes from like Reed Pub to Wilson. That redesign was, it's worked amazingly. It's interesting to see everybody park where they're supposed to park for that greenway. And that's all Larkspur. So I will not take up any of your time this evening. Please reach out. I hope I get a yes from you. It's good to see Ann Perry here. She is in most of our meetings.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, everybody.
bye.
Thank you again for the.
Thank
information.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, back to the agenda. So, any other thoughts among the board about this park thing? Are people around? Would there be people willing to do the table if there's a table there, or do part of a time at a table? I have to look at my calendar to even see if I'm around.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting and fun project, but again, I have to look at my calendar and look at everything else I have going on. I might be here, I might not be, but I can't really tell you right now. So, but it does sound like.
I know I'm not.
You're not.
Yeah,
Kristen's
okay.
out. I know for sure I'm out that weekend. I think it's a great idea if someone is available. And I think if we can combine forces, if like one of us is in town, or even if we weren't in town, I would hope that he would still have our sign up sheet or,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
like
just
if
looked at my
someone's
calendar.
in town, great, but I know I'm not.
Yeah, I just looked at my calendar and I'm gone. So
Yeah.
it's not gonna work for me.
I'm around, but I'm probably working till, who knows what that day will look like. And if I show up in dirty work clothes, like, I could show up and I don't know, maybe we play with sprinklers at the booth, but like, man, but yeah, like you said, Kristen, hopefully if we can't, if one of us can't be there in person, that they would still, of course, yeah, because it's in the southeast side of town. So who's going to attend? You get people from the whole southeast area, and that's going to be all the neighborhoods. So let's support it and promote it all as a, a group together. So that just makes sense. But I might be able to do an hour at the end or something, so I won't say no yet, but.
So how about this? I'll tell him that we will definitely be willing to promote it.
Yeah, we can definitely promote it. I mean, we can, share it, and yeah, that's.
And that we still have to sort out whether anybody is going to be around, but it's not looking promising.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Fair
But definitely
enough.
we can promote
Okay.
it.
Okay, very good. Okay. Back to the agenda. Okay, old business. So we are into our normal reporting routine. Kelsey's not here to report on minutes and budget. I don't think much has changed. I did get finally the opportunity to get a hold of Ariel, and she did submit her budget or her requisition request for the Zoom stuff and the MailChimp stuff and everything from last year when she was managing it. She finally did get that one submitted, so it will happen in this year's budget, which was my main goal. And Kelsey did not put out the minutes from last time, and she said that she will do it after this meeting, and I've been taking notes, and so I will pull together something probably pretty cryptic for this meeting. NLA Morgan.
I'm here. NLA continues. Most of our last meeting was taken up with discussing more and more about the shelter code amendments that the Planning Commission has been working on, and I believe City Council is going to take those up now in May. There's been kind of delay after delay, just with people being frustrated around, I'm not sure if they're frustrated around the process or around not having things go the way they want them to go. It's difficult to say. Our conversation last week revolved a lot around, and I'd be curious actually to hear what you all think. I know we're getting down to the wire, so if you want to just email me, you can, but you know, some of the conversation revolved around NLA members, and I think close to a majority, if not a majority, wanting there to be 24/7 management on site at all times for these shelters. And the city suggested, you know, that in some circumstances, service providers might decide that a resident of those managed communities or a group of residents could facilitate that management, especially in like an overnight situation. Obviously, with support from the many services that we all have to call when we might be worried about something happening in our neighborhood. And so that was one concern that people have. Another was just, which I think is fair, and we've talked about at length, is the notification process and communication process the city uses when these things are being considered. And then the final one, the biggest concern for a lot of folks is just proximity to schools and parks. I think it's really important for us to know as we're talking with neighbors that one of the adjustments that the Planning Commission has made is that these supported communities, I'm calling them, if they're in residential areas, would need to be basically sited on like public or community property. I say community meaning, you know, faith communities or parks or school district, parks and rec. You know, it has to be not just an empty lot next to your house that you decide you're going to put a managed camp on, but something that's connected to sort of a public or community institution. To me, that feels sufficient. And I just noted, you know, my usual broken record that I think putting too many restrictions on this development code for shelters could limit our ability to actually have them. If we put service providers in a position where they have to have somebody with a master's degree staying there 24/7, or you know, if they can't place single moms with kiddos near a school or things like that, that our options for actually housing people and sheltering people go way down. Which, you know, I immediately thought of when we have neighbors who are concerned about you know, maybe trash or leftovers from people camping in places that we would prefer not to see them camping. One thing that I would love to continue saying to folks is that the more we support these communities that are run by a service provider and have these kinds of, I use this word support too many times, but support structures in place, the less we're going to have that, or the more recourse the city will have to actually ask people not to camp kind of wherever they'd like to. So if people are saying, you know, this is a problem, I'm worried about it, people are just camping wherever, leaving trash wherever, our best solution is actually to put shelters in place and to put managed camps or you know, managed communities in place for them, which I think has been a disconnect for some folks. So we talked about all that at length, and we'll see what they do with it. I think we all got the email, but I think it'll be really important for whoever can be at the Caldera High community. I don't know, what are they calling it, Sue? They're calling it like a town hall or public
It's like
forum.
a town hall.
Yeah.
I think
Town halls.
I imagine that those events next week, there's two kind of identical ones, one on Monday, one on Wednesday in the evenings. I imagine those are going to draw people who are really anxious. What was that?
I said that it's going to draw people that are opposed to it.
Yeah. That's my thought. And so I just think if we can help spread the word to people who want to see more support for unhoused neighbors in ways that are managed and supported, the more of us that show up to ask thoughtful questions and show that we care and we know that the solution is actually to offer more care, not less. I think that'd be really powerful. So I'm planning to be there as much as I can be, and invite you and anyone you talk to show up as well. I think it'll be a good opportunity for community conversation, but I do fear that it will be a little bit one-sided, as Kristen mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if that's all you've got, then we'll move on to land use. Or is there other questions to Morgan?
Anne has her hand raised here.
Okay.
Did you mention, hi, did you mention, Morgan, that you think that those two meetings are basically identical and it's just for convenience for people who couldn't make one or the other date?
That's my understanding, Anne. Yeah, is that they'll have the same panel and the same kind of format. Obviously, the experience could change based on who's in the room.
Right.
But yeah, my understanding is that they're just duplicate events for space.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Morgan?
Oh, I think we're good.
Okay, so land use, Kat.
Hello, everyone. So this month, other than conversations with City Council about the houselessness issue, there weren't a lot of public hearings. City Council did proclaim it Fair Housing Month. So that was a hot topic at the council meeting that I attended. I'm going to send out my minutes, which pretty much includes a list of upcoming public meetings towards the end of this month and the beginning of May, which are also going to be included on the Larkspur land use calendar. And I will get an email out to communications and on Nextdoor and Facebook for those town halls. And that's it.
Okay, I did notice, just because I live close by, that there's going to be a county commission meeting about the addition of the 38 acres to the urban growth boundary for affordable housing north of Bear Creek and south of Highway 20, just on the eastern border. And it's, of course, the hearing is the same day as we are having the general meeting, but that's the breaks, I guess. I think mostly it'll be just this neighborhood that would be really concerned about it anyway. And I'm not sure that those people would come to our meeting. So not something I'm going to change our general meeting for, but just something that I noted. Anything else?
What meeting was that for? What date was that?
It's May 10th.
Oh, okay.
At 6 p.m. It's the county planning commission, I believe. So I'm not even 100% sure you'll get a notice for it.
I do have a notice for it.
Okay.
I do have a notice for it. That's
Okay.
actually the last notice that I've received so far. So.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, and is any other questions about land use? Okay, transportation, Diane.
Not a lot new. You've heard it all tonight. This was our our big push. We got Janet and Robin both here. They came up with some ideas. Sue, when she shares her slides, could you please forward those to me as well? I had a hard time seeing those maps that she was pointing to, and I would really love to pore over them a little bit. And I think it would be a great idea, Molly, if we could come up with a survey and send it out to our members with some of the options that she suggested. And I will do my best to come up with what I remember and what the notes I was jotting down, and hopefully I'll be able to read, but maybe anyone can add in ideas that they heard that I didn't or remembered that I didn't, but I would love a chance to pour over those slides too. So, but that's the only update I have.
Yeah, and of course we can all take a look at the recording of this, and that'll help us to put together a good survey too, because I wasn't writing very good notes during that time. I was like, I did take a couple of screenshots of the slides, but she already has sent that to me, so I can forward that on.
Excellent.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Is the intention for the survey to have something in Google Docs that's available online for people to take?
No, it
It
would
would-
be a link on our survey, or sorry, a link on our website. So it could be like a, you know, something that we could share and, you know, social media and such. Yeah, so it would live there.
For this survey, is there a way to add graphics to the questions?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm like, we can build it however, yeah. So if you've got pictures or ideas, you know, I'm totally into that, because I think, yeah, you know, graphically, especially when you're talking about, you know, rethinking streets and such, you know, what an opportunity, you know, if we could do some kind of greenway part, you know, pedestrian street and still have vehicular access, try to meet all those things. But I totally understand the issue of the grade changes and just the narrowness to the area. It's a challenge. It's a challenging situation, and that's why no one's addressed it. No one's fixed it. It's a really
There's no
hard
money for
problem.
it either right now.
Right,
so-
because there's not a cheap fix at all. And so that's where my mind gets stuck with, I understand that we only have so much to work with. And so I kind of immediately go to like, well, how can we make one way work? And when you look at those images, you know, like maybe it's like when we come in, what I guess I didn't get a chance to ask this, but what would it take to make Pettigrew a not through street? You know, and kind of make it, you know, it might be two-way to kind of coming into certain, and then through the middle, it could be one way. I mean, there's kind of a bunch of different ways you could do it, because that's what I really thought about. I'm like, why is anybody driving on Pettigrew? Because only if your driveway is on Pettigrew, you live on Pettigrew Court, you're stuck to it, because all those other streets have other ways, and of course some of them are much longer than the other ways, and I understand that. But you know, in the sake of improving the situation, I wonder what people are willing to give. And so I've kind of got some ideas. I'll put together my questions. You guys have questions, and I'll definitely make sure that we kind of comb through that, because I think too, you know, I live on Pettigrew, so I'm a little biased, and so I need somebody to kind of check me as I put this together. So I totally recognize that in the situation.
We'll
So
all work together.
yeah.
So what do you think about time frame? How, I mean, I don't think there's a huge crunch on this because,
Right.
you know, it's not like the money is going to appear next week.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have some like really thoughtful ideas, you know, by the time those next projects are coming about, because we're like, ooh, look how this one could apply to this chunk of the street, and we could get this project to be part of that, you know, on the north end or the south end. So, you know,
yeah,
but
so
I would,
I'm just saying that I don't think we need to be trying to get it out in the next 2 weeks or something like that.
Right.
So let's try to build some ideas and thoughts, and we'll go through this stuff.
yeah.
Exchange a few emails and try
Yeah.
to come up with something and take the time to really do it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, be thoughtful with
Absolutely.
it, because we have the
Be
time.
thoughtful with it.
So, yeah, I like
Mhm.
that.
Can I just ask if I tried to share some PDFs in Google Docs to the Larkspur board as like did anyone receive that?
Yeah, I did.
I
Okay.
did not.
Yeah.
Did
Okay.
you include transportation? Of course, if it's sent to the board, but sometimes I don't get things that the board gets. Because my email was added later.
Okay. I'm gonna share it separately with transportation. But if you guys could send me an email later and let me know, this is the resource that I was referencing earlier in the meeting. I think using the visual aids offered in this guide would give people a way to visualize what they would like the street to look like. Because the resource offers a bunch of different actual before and after schematics of streets with different classifications. So like she was mentioning that because this is a collector street, certain things aren't allowed. And in these guides, they have a number of different like arterial, major and minor. And in one particular, I'll send an example of a collector street where it provides a visual aid for people so that if they are taking the survey, maybe they'll just be able to look at it and be like, oh, I like this one better. And if it were me choosing, I would prefer it to look like this. And it shows them the before and after, which might not be exactly what our street looks like. But yeah, if you guys can let me know if you have access to that guide. I can't email them because they're relatively large documents. But then we can shoot some emails back and forth and see what we could add to the survey, and I'll send my favorite one.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, communications. We have an email that you're going to forward to me. Is there any other thing that have come in?
No, not really. That just came in this morning about the Conyer Trail and trash around 9th Street. Guess I just could say that, well, I guess I want to ask, did anybody go to the cleanup? I go to church on Sunday morning, so did anybody do the cleanup? Wasn't that yesterday or the day last week, 2 weeks ago?
It was last weekend, I think.
Or last weekend? Did anybody go? Did we have a good showing?
No, I didn't go. I had
Nobody.
family visiting from out of state.
Yeah.
I had not
Did-
heard. I
and-
thought Kelsey was going to be here and that she would report
Have
on
we
it.
heard?
And I have
Did
not.
she end up? Okay. Did Kelsey end up going?
I'm not sure about that either, but she was the one
Okay.
who was handling all that interface.
Okay.
But yeah, I
So-
didn't go.
Don't
either.
know whether. Okay. So, and the only thing I got was that email from illegal dumping. And then I guess I just have some questions for everyone as to like, and I apologize, Sue, I'm not on Facebook a whole lot. So, but I see that you kind of jump on it as soon as we're like, hey, should we post this? And then it's already there. You're doing it really fast. So I'm like, oh, okay, she's got it. So let me know if there's any time I need to jump on that, or who wants to post it. But I feel like everything that goes on the blog is going to go straight to the website, right?
Yeah, so
Is that right, Molly?
it's supposed to, but I noticed that some things haven't, and that was a question of mine, is there something that we need to do differently if we're posting on the webpage in order to make sure that they go to the blog?
Well,
to the-
the blog is the webpage, right? So yeah, if we're posting
the
on the
Facebook.
blog, that it automatically goes to Facebook. Since I've been doing things, I think the first couple, maybe it was kind of like a test and they didn't, but everything that I've been posting on the blog should be pushing to Facebook. But you need to connect. If you're writing a blog and you go into the settings and you go to the social link, you need to make sure that you have your Facebook connected so you can enable it there under that social setting. So, and that's the thing, like I get everything written and then I don't go and click that social thing and I have it disabled and it publishes it. And once it's published, it's hard to pull it back and then republish it out to have it automatically do that. So I have to go and manually do it. But long as you click that social and have, Facebook enabled, it should do that automatically for you. So
Okay.
can check that.
So do we want any additional posts that don't come from the website or the blog? That's one question. And then do you want me to contribute to the blog or help you with that?
It seems like we have just those, if you see something come up and it's like, hey, should we share this? It feels like I'm getting a lot of content. I mean, I post more to our neighborhood blog than I do my work one. And I mean, I feel like it's pretty active. I mean, we could schedule stuff if we wanted to do some kind of daily thing. And like Monday, here's our, Larkspur's tip of the week, we could do stuff like that and schedule them. So I don't know how much you want to like really get in, to how much, but I feel like we're being pretty active there, but maybe it's just because I'm always the one posting it, but
right, exactly. Well, I just don't want to make sure anybody's like, Kristen's not doing her job. What the hell? So let me know if I need to step in anywhere. That's what I want to know.
It would be good probably, like I am like the functional illiterate when it comes to technical stuff. And so having another person to back up Molly would be good if you were willing to step in and learn how to do blog.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. Maybe Molly, you could teach me the back end of the website so that I can do some blog posts. If they're going directly to social and that's what I'm supposed to be working on, then I should probably know how to update the blog.
I mean, once it's all kind of up and it's kind of templates, I mean, you could kind of get your own written and you just copy, and duplicate off
Right.
of old blogs and just update them. That,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty easy way once it's kind of set up. So yeah, we could
Okay.
find some time for
Off-
that.
Yeah, you and I'll do that offline. Then, so then the question is, are we going to promote those town halls? I don't think we've put them on our Facebook page yet, right? So do we want to promote those town halls? Megan, maybe,
I might
yeah.
have shared them. I might have shared them when some other neighborhood posted them.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
sent it in the reminder for today. I posted them.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. That
Okay.
was good. That was good, Marty. Yeah. And I've been meaning to put it on the website. So to update the blog, that was going to be, one of the next ones. And I didn't get it done today, but it is on my to-do list. So I should get it done tomorrow morning. So because
Okay.
yeah, that's next week that happens. So
I mean,
kind of-
because
Sorry.
Morgan, we still want to promote it. Or do we need more people, so we should be promoting it, right, Morgan? So we guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think
guess.
so. I think if more people come out who are really vocally opposed, that won't really change the temperature of the room. But if more people come out who are really supportive, that could make a difference. So I'm working probably tonight or tomorrow morning on just a post update for my page and Pandemic Partners that'll frame it from a supportive angle. So you all are welcome. We can share that too to the Larkspur. It'll just be informational, but I'll try to at least have kind of an advocacy kind of spin on that.
Good.
That we could share if you want, and you're
Okay.
all welcome to spread that around.
Anne has her
Great.
hand up. I just want to check and see if Anne has something.
Oh, hi. You know what? I am technically illiterate as well. Where is this blog? I don't even know what a blog is.
You're right up my alley here.
I want to learn.
It's just a place where online you can kind of go and give people an update where it doesn't live anywhere else, but it's not a social media thing. A blog lives on a website, so most of the time that's you have to go to kind of search or have a link to it. But if you go to larkspurneighborhoodassociation.com under news and events, it's a link at the top of the page.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it's on your website.
On our website. Yeah, those
Yeah.
links up at the top of the page. You can kind of go and see there's some resources, and I actually just updated the resources page because it seemed like no
Yeah,
one
I
could
saw
choose
that.
between fire and water. I was like, well, maybe I can put some fire resources on here. I'll put some water resources too, and we can talk about whatever. But there's there's resources on the website, so people can find those whenever they need to or want to. And yeah, give me your feedback on that. I'm just kind of making stuff up, you guys. It feels like every meeting we have, it's like, ooh, there's a need for this, ooh, there's a need for that. And so I just kind of throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And some of it seems to be working really well. And I'm sure some of it could be better. So please don't hesitate on your feedback there for me. But Kristen, you might not be done yet. I think I kind of jumped in there on the website stuff. Okay, you're done. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So from the membership side of things, Marty, do you have anything?
Just that I added those 2 new members that you asked me to add.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm doing adequate job sending out the notices. Do I need to be more proactive in anything?
I think, we sent out actually 2 notices this month because we had, reason to get information out early with the cleanup day. And no, I think that's great. We are going to have, at some point, we need to talk about postcards, and that was something that kind of fell into the membership role. And so that's going to be kind of an active thing that maybe the 2 of us will be working on here for a little bit to get that underway before the general meeting that comes up in May. So
that we should need to start doing that pretty soon.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. That's on the agenda here a little bit further, and so we'll talk about that in a minute. And anything else on the webpage, Molly?
No, I mean, yeah, I think we kind of talked about most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was something that Kat sent out that she got in the mail about a notice about the domain name, is that right?
Yep, it looks like we're up for renewal for the domain
And
name
you-
on the website.
Oh,
It
yeah,
came in
yeah,
the mail.
yeah, I think it's actually in April sometime. I've got my card and stuff on there, so I need to, yeah, get a reimbursement form filled out for the Squarespace. Yeah.
You got Squarespace and you probably have some Zoom and,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think
And
that's
we
it.
want to make sure that we get that, think about the fact that we want to get bills kind of paid by the end of June.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. So do you like those, if there's a monthly charge for the Zoom, should I fill out a reimbursement form monthly or, I can wait till quarterly or, like by June, just annually or what would we prefer?
However you want to do it will work.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that the budget year runs from July 1st to July 1st. So
Right.
Don't try to hold a bunch of them over and then get them paid in July, I guess is my point.
Right. Yep. Definitely.
Okay.
Is our funding for neighborhood associations? I know that there's been some conversations about that. Is that like set in stone for a while?
It's based on the number of properties that we have in our neighborhood. So, and it's also kind of parsed out so that at least the smaller neighborhoods have enough to do some basic minimal things, like for instance, insurance, which is a fixed cost. So we end up usually having more money than we actually need to operate over the course of a year. So we have a little bit of slack in it. There's quite a few restrictions on how we can spend it. So, we can't go throw a party, although we can throw a party, but it has to have a communications kind of goal or community building kind of goal. So, there are certain types of things like we did the Larkspur Day at the Elks one time at the Bend Elks baseball and bought a bunch of tickets and gave them away and it was fun. So, that counted as community building. So there are ways you can do it, but there is a certain oversight as how we spend it.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it appears you can renew for multiple years ahead of time and we can get a .org. Or .net.
And there is that thought that if you can renew for multiple years and we've got money in the budget, that's something we could think about.
Kat, who's that bill from? What is that?
It's from a domain registry.
Huh.
And it says domain for Larkspur Neighborhood Association.com.
Okay, yeah, because we didn't always have Squarespace, so that domain purchase isn't actually through the website. So, because that's weird, all my other ones that I've always done through Squarespace, I've bought the domain name through Squarespace. So that charge is taken care of in my overall Squarespace invoice. But this sounds like it's actually different and it needs to still be paid.
You can probably.
Yeah, took a picture of the invoice and mailed it. Did you mail it to?
Yeah, I mailed it to you and VP.
Okay, so you should have it, Molly.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll double check the Squarespace too.
Okay.
It had our address, so can't be that much of a scam.
Oh no, yeah, no, I don't think it's a scam. No, it's not that. It's because you have to purchase a domain. You have to have that, and then there's the, the data of your website. So there's kind of two separate things, but they go together. So yeah.
We just don't want to buy it twice.
Correct.
Well, let me know if you want a handoff of the physical copy. I'll hang on to it for a while.
Okay.
Okay. Back to the agenda. How are we doing? 7:51. Okay. Continuing topics. So we don't know about the beautification cleanup project and how it went. I will send an email to the person who was the contact on that and find out.
Morgan just said that she saw a bunch of yellow bags, so it appeared to be successful.
Oh, good.
Trash happened.
Trash happened. That's always good. 'Cause, 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 We talked about following up on the Pettigrew business with a neighbor survey, and so we don't need to talk anymore about that. Spring general meeting. So the feedback that we got from the survey was basically that the two topics that we had picked were kind of okay. Would you say that's correct? And so the theme.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, everyone said fire, really. No one really, it's interesting that, you know, water conservation and fire kind of go together, but everyone really mentioned fire. So I think that's kind of the main one that they want to hear about. So.
Okay. So in conversation with Michaela, she's got somebody lined up to talk about fire resilience. She is trying to find somebody. She hasn't yet quite got it nailed down for evacuation. And then she has somebody from the city for water. So I was thinking, Molly, I'll have to look at the email. I'll get you the name of the person if you want to tag team with that person on it.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's either Dan or Doug.
It was a D, I can tell you.
Yeah, it's either Dan Denning or Doug Vodeberg. So I mean, yeah, they either of them would do great, and yeah, however that works out. So that sounds great. I'm glad that they'd be on board to give us some of their time.
Daniel Denning.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay, anyway, so I think it would be good to have somebody from the city, just from the point of view of having a official person to answer questions if there's something that they're going to say. So, okay, so the postcards, I sent around pictures of the postcards that we've sent in the past. So I think the only things that we're going to really have to do for the meeting are going to be associated with coming up with a little bit of verbiage for the postcards, just introducing the people who are going to be talking. And I'm thinking the theme of fire and water is going to sound kind of catchy.
Yeah.
So I can work with Marty on that, and the two of us can come up with some verbiage for the postcard. So the meeting is going to be on May 10th. So it's not going to be our usual monthly meeting time. It's a Tuesday. It was one we talked about, I think 2 meetings ago, as being the reasonable time to do it, because other times Thursdays weren't going to work for somebody, and we don't want to do it on a night when the city council is normally meeting, because then that limits our possibility on getting city staff. And the agenda will just basically be us introducing ourselves as the board, and then introducing the speaker. So it won't feel all that much different from one of our usual nightly meetings, except that there will be a lot of people, very much like your first meetings, because you were all like recruited on your first meetings, right? And so I think it's one of these things that we need to get going on, because the notice needs to go out about 2 weeks before the meeting. So that means that the postcard needs to go out sometime next week. And so I'll work with Marty on it, and we'll come up with some language. But if the postcards that the pictures of the postcards look okay, I'm thinking that we don't need to come up with anything original in the way of artwork, but we'll come up with something very similar to that, or just change the verbiage a little bit and use similar pictures or something like that. Does that sound like a plan?
Whom do you use? Is this a PDF file that needs to be made, or we can talk about that?
Yeah, so it should be someplace in the membership email folder, or the Google Drive or something for membership. I don't know where it lives.
Okay.
If we have to pull in Ariel to get a little coaching, I'm sure she'll be willing to help. I have not done it myself, so I don't know. But if you look for something that's called postcard or something like that in your Google Drive or something under membership, we'll probably find it. And once we come up with a postcard, we just submit it with a list of addresses to the printer, and he does everything else. And if it doesn't make it 2 weeks ahead and it's like 10 days ahead, it's not like no big deal. Okay.
I think it actually lives in Dropbox. There's a link on that big thing that Ariel left us
Okay.
that says that stuff lives in a Dropbox file.
Okay. We'll find it.
Yep.
Considering the hour, I'm thinking that we will maybe not discuss some of the other continuing topics unless there's one on the list that everybody is really hot to see. What are people thinking?
Nope, I was happy to hear about my Pettigrew. I'm happy with that hot topic.
Okay. Because we have, like, we
Oh.
want to keep the continuing topics in front of us, but we don't necessarily have to talk about them every time.
Right. Do we want to try to get together though? Is that the thing? Like we missed that and we kind of do want to do that, I think.
We totally want to do that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I really don't want to do it when it's friggin' cold.
Yeah.
Or raining.
Oh, that reminded me, actually, Sue, we can still get together, but my work schedule's not going to conflict with the NLA and also won't conflict with Bevel opportunities. So
Oh,
Even better.
yay.
most importantly, NLA is fine, but most importantly, I can do Bevel really flexibly. So
Oh, very good. Very good. So, so let's just wait a week or so and then I'll put is when the weather looks like it's going to turn the corner.
Yeah, it doesn't
gotta
look like
know.
it's going to turn the corner till the end of the month. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
a while.
I think we should
So
keep trying at least.
Let's
So
keep trying. Okay.
nice.
Okay. So next month, the only meeting date we have is May 10th. I'm thinking we won't have our meeting unless there's something that comes up at the meeting that we decide that we need to talk about. We will not meet again until June. Does that sound all right? People won't be
good.
like heartbroken.
Well, no, we'll meet at Bevel.
Yes.
Oh, then we'll meet at Bevel. Yes, we'll meet at Bevel. So
What's the date? Are we still June the 3rd, right? June, or not the 3rd Tuesday or 3rd Monday, excuse me.
we're
June,
still figuring on the 3rd.
20th.
Yeah.
Yeah, June 20th. Okay, and then we'll be off for July and then
And then
back
off
in August.
Back in August is the
Back in
plan.
August.
There will still be stuff like coming into the mailbox and, there's other things that we'll deal with maybe through email.
Right.
But not
Email,
planning
yeah.
on meeting just because that's a time when a lot of people are doing other stuff. So
Got it.
I'm just
Okay.
considering May 10th, Sue. For the
May
main
10th
meeting.
is the general meeting.
What time is that at?
I think we said 6:30, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. I have to check and see what I told Michaela.
Nope, that's perfect. NLA is just at 4 to 6, so then I'll spin and do that. That's awesome. It'll be my
Okay,
neighborhood day.
good.
We did, sorry to forget, but we're doing Zoom
Yes, we are doing
for
only
that
Zoom.
May 10th.
Only Zoom.
Yeah.
So we decided it was too, and I sat in on a meeting the other day that was a combo of Zoom and non-Zoom. And it wasn't good. So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
we may decide that for the time being, we continue to just do Zoom until like the world looks like it's completely healed. I don't know what the hell, but we'll figure it out.
We may
Okay.
be on Zoom forever.
I feel like we could do like a nice outdoor summer meeting or something.
Yes, we could.
Yeah, maybe for August in a
At
park.
Bevel. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Bevel.
Bevel.
There you go.
Well, we
I'm-
could reserve
That's a great idea.
We could reserve a shelter at Larkspur Park.
Yeah,
Ooh,
just something.
that's a nice idea.
That would be
Bring a
really nice.
lawn chair, bring the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
like that.
If that sounds okay with everybody, then we'll call it a meeting. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
I will write up some minutes and try to get them circulated, and feel free to shoot holes in them because I'm sure they will be cryptic.
No, we can all just add a little bit to it and then we'll all kind of build it together that way. So,
Sounds good.
There we
yeah.
go. Goodbye, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right. Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye, all.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.